and welcome to Town Hall 2025. I'm your moderator, Daniel Crow. The original Town Hall was hosted by Jack Faust, a true giant of Oregon history from 1980 until 1993. Town Hall was a weekly public affairs program on Channel 2, featuring discussions, often contentious, between public officials, experts, and everyday Oregonians on topics that range from the serious, like child abuse, to the somewhat less so, like Bigfoot. Halfway through his run, Jack even had on a young 16-year-old from Mount Angel on his way to West Point. Yours truly. With Jack's blessing, it is my great honor and solemn responsibility to carry on the baton that Jack carried so well. Our goal here is to revive that spirit of robust, peaceable public debate, which has always characterized our Oregon way. Together, I think that we can do some good for all of our people. And we began with Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025. Soon to come, Series 2, the race for Oregon Democratic Party Chair 2025. If you, our audience, decide that talking with one another rather than past one another is preferable, well, maybe we'll be getting to know each other a little bit better. Welcome to Town Hall 2025, Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair. I'm your host, Daniel Crow, and before we begin, I'd like to lay out our ground rules. We begin with two special series. Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025, and Series 2, the race for Democratic Party Chair 2025. Since Oregon Republicans will choose their leader first on February 22nd, we will begin with them. Oregon Democrats will choose their leader on March 12th. For Series 1, we have invited all 7 declared candidates for Oregon Republican Party Chair to appear on our program. In alphabetical order, candidates Gabriel Buehler, Jerry Cummings, Ben Edel, Joe A. Perkins, and Angelita Sanchez have accepted, and we will be recording an episode for each of them. Candidate Richard Jolly did not respond to our invitation. The final declared candidate, Oregon Republican Party Chair Justin Huang, has agreed to be our guest for a special retrospective episode. When we sent out the invitations, every candidate was given this preface and a list of the 3 subject areas that we intend to cover: your executive experience, Oregon culture and political history, and the role of the Oregon Republican Party going forward. None of the candidates were provided the questions we intend to ask, but we encouraged all of them to carefully review the Oregon Republican Party bylaws and platform, as we intend to explore these areas with specificity. My role in this program is to act as moderator, not judge. I am not here to pick either the Republican or the Democratic Party chair. Therefore, anything which you, our viewers, might interpret as a personal opinion on my part should be disregarded, with the possible exception of my 81-year-old mom, still living in Mount Angel, who cares about my opinion anyway. Each candidate is a guest, and this is Oregon. Therefore, each guest will be treated with compassion, dignity, and respect. But these men and women are campaigning for a position of public responsibility. Therefore, my questions are designed to be neither easy nor comfortable to answer. To keep us honest, we will invite a well-respected county chair from the party we are interviewing for each series. In Series 1, the race for Oregon Republican Party Chair, we are joined by Baker County Republican Party Chair Danny Johnson, who will act as referee. He is uncommitted to any particular candidate, which is important. For Series 2, the race for Oregon Democratic Party Chair, our referee will be an uncommitted and universally respected county chair from the Oregon Democratic Party to ensure that every candidate is treated fairly yet firmly. Each candidate guest will have 3 challenge flags that they can throw at any point during our discussion if they feel that they need more time to answer a question or if they feel my questioning is unfair in any way. If a candidate wants to use his or her challenge flag, they will state their objection, and Chair Johnson, in this series, will rule on it. In each series, the referee's ruling will be final. In Series 1, Chair Johnson will follow up with his own questions after each of our 3 subject areas. His job is to explore areas which he believes are relevant to understanding each candidate as a potential future state chair. Since the county chairs actually have to work alongside their state party chairs, I am interested in what the county chair thinks is important. I also want to note that our referees have complete discretion to ask whatever they want, but I have reminded each of them that they are speaking for all of their fellow county chairs. If you, our audience, find this longer format discussion worthwhile, we intend to move forward with subsequent series on all of Oregon's political parties major, and minor. Each party will provide a well-respected, uncommitted county chair from their own party to help us ensure that our conversations are substantive and informative. Later this summer, we intend to branch out to address issues that Oregonians and Friends of Oregon care about: public health, education, abortion, gun rights, governmental power, the growing urban-rural divide, land use planning, and so on. As I mentioned in our pre-taped intro, our goal here is to revive that spirit of robust, peaceable public debate which has always characterized our Oregon way. Oregonians don't find shouting persuasive, and I believe that our people are starving for substantive grown-up conversations about matters which impact us all, because I believe in self-government, and I believe in you. A good man, former Montana Attorney General Tim Fox, once taught me why we even have politics. And I quote, "Politics exists so that we can live in peace alongside those with whom we will never agree. As a career professional soldier, I can assure you that civil wars are far easier to start than they are to stop. So let's keep talking, Oregon." Section 1, your executive experience. Before we begin with questions and answers, I'd like to give you, Chair Gabriel Buehler, an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us why you are running for Oregon Republican Party chair. Gabriel, the floor is yours.
So I'm the chairman of the Washington County Republican Party. The reason why I'm running is, throughout my whole life, God has given me this unique ability, and it's to see a problem and fix it. He never gave me the maintainer ability to where it's like status quo and you come in there and just maintain it. I can see out and see the picture of where the problem is and where we need to be to fix it. And I know what the goal has to be in the near future, along with the next couple election cycles, if we're actually going to have a chance to change this. We're blessed with having Donald Trump back in the White House, but it's still going to take some work from Oregon Republican volunteers, because that's what we all are here. Is we're volunteers, and we want to make this state reasonable again, a good place to live, to have your family, to not have to worry about being taxed to death. So that's the real reason why I'm running, is because I feel called to do this. I felt called to fix Washington County, and we work seamlessly as a team. We do not have any infighting that goes on. All voices are heard. We have a great executive team there. We do a lot of grassroots initiative stuff. From getting out the vote to voter registration to getting statements in the voters pamphlet. So I want to bring that to the ORP so that way people can be more excited about being on the bandwagon, claiming the big R. We want them to claim the big R. So, we got some work to do to get that.
And now, as a follow-up to those questions, first thing, as we discussed before we went on to the air, because somebody's going to mention it in the comments, is I note that your flag is reversed right now, and so I wanted to give you an opportunity to explain to our viewers where you showed me on the other side why it's reversed or why it's presented the way it is.
So I found this flag, and it was at a garage sale, and it was going to be destroyed. They were going to take it to the VFW and to have it destroyed. And I found out that it was an elderly gentleman that had just passed away, his flag, and he had it. It's a 4x8 flag, and it's got hand sewn stars on it. And the reason why they were going to have it destroyed is because the reverse side is all faded because it was hung up on the correct way. But I brought Old Glory out just for this interview because she deserves to shine. Whether or not it's facing backwards or not, she still has life.
Excellent. Thank you. Did you grow up here or did you come to Oregon?
I grew up here. I was born in Longview, Washington. Actually lived on Mount St. Helens at Silver Lake. My dad had built a cabin there, and we evacuated when I was 1 years old and went down to my grandma's house in Clascanine. Lived there for a little while, and then moved to the Portland metro area. And so I barely I was born in Washington, barely lived a year up there, and had to leave because the mountain blew up. So, but other than that, I've been an Oregonian. Other than the fact I left to join the Marine Corps to serve our nation.
Well, thank you for your service. From the outside, each party can look like a monolith, but anyone who has spent time in politics knows that political parties are comprised of constantly shifting coalitions which organize themselves around what they believe are the most urgent issues facing the people whom they serve. How would you describe the current Oregon Republican Party coalition?
Well, trying to survive in the super minority is a very tough position. We do actually have some legislators that are in right now that have survived in the super minority a couple of times. Some of them, this is their first go around of that, and what they've seen with, I mean, it's more than 1,000 now bills that they've proposed, and they know they can ramrod them in. They know that this is even a uniquer dynamic. The fact that if you walk out now, like, you got 10 days, and there is no more, this one's super bad, so we're going to walk out and we're going to hold their feet to the fire. I mean, you can't do that anymore. And the Oregon voters spoke on it, but I don't think that they understood the gravity of the situation of what that would create with not being able to stop harmful legislation in any way whatsoever. And I'll remind you that Abraham Lincoln walked out many times from his Illinois state legislature. He jumped out of a window one time to deny quorum. So it's been around for a long time, and the fact that it was taken away, actually, it hurts our republic. And so I definitely think that they can champion a couple of things. The taxes that are being proposed, first of all, voters voted down 118, handily voted that thing down, said no way to a corporate tax, which usually Democrats are on board with taxing big corporations. And they said no to that. So I think that the message really needs to be, well, Oregon voters, you voted this down. So is this really what you want out of your elected representatives? That kind of messaging, I think, is key, because if you just go on the screen and you say, look what the Democrats are doing, vote Republican, that's being accusatory, and you're telling someone what to do. I prefer the other method where you're shining light on something and you're posing a question to make people think about it. Is this really what we want? If they could hammer that home over this long session and into the 26th election, I definitely think that we can get back to maybe having a majority, but definitely not being in the super majority.
Okay, you've jumped forward a couple of questions there. So
Sorry.
let's go back. First of all, Measure 118 is that the corporate tax in the last election cycle that was voted handily down by Oregon voters?
Oh yeah, big time.
Good. Just to orient our viewers to what you were referencing. Second of all, so I'd like to return back to that question that I'd asked, and ask you to describe your understanding of what factions represent Oregon Republicanism today. That is, we might say about the Democratic Party faction that traditionally it is included, and we'll ask questions about this later, but it included intellectuals, academics, people in the opinion formation industries, celebrities, minorities, working class people. That was the traditional Democratic Party coalition nationally, let's say from probably 1932 up until very recently. Whereas the traditional Republican coalition nationally from 1952 to 1989 was comprised of people who unified around the idea of anti-communism. So the question that I'd like to ask, that our viewers would like to understand, is what is your understanding of what the current Oregon Republican Party coalition is comprised of right now?
Well, I think it's in kind of a little bit of a flux. I don't think that there is quite an identity for what Oregon politics is. And I referred to it specifically as the being in the super minority. It's fighting on the back of your heels. You don't have firm ground to stand on, and so you can pick and choose what you're going to talk about, and you're going to fight certain things. But as far as the coalition on what to fight against, um, I'll just put it to you this way: the Democrats, they're super freaked out with all their caucuses right now because the campaign finance laws that got voted in, they can't exist underneath those new campaign finance laws. So they've got a whole bunch of different caucuses in the Democrat Party and in the legislature. They're not going to be able to exist at all. We don't really have that. We have a couple legislators that are trying to create some caucuses that are kind of along the same lines of like the Freedom Caucus, where it's an individual liberty thing, and, stop telling us what to do, and stop taxing us. We want representation from our government, things like that. But as far as a coalition goes, natural resources is a big thing in Southern Oregon. There's a lot of our legislators that are from down there, and so they fight specifically on that subject. So if I had to say the biggest one, I would probably put it at the natural resources.
From 1859 to 1985, Oregon Republicans dominated Oregon politics. Since 1986, not so much. What changed?
Okay, there's a couple of things that made this change. For instance, in 2000, we had $5 million of non-pass-through money come into the Oregon Republican Party. $5 million. That's 9 million today, adjusted for inflation. So what happened was this term I call the power over nothing. Once we got vote by mail and we started to lose traction in these different districts, we had what, one, two, three rounds of redistricting. And it's made it so that it looks like a spider web. It all touches up to the metro area. And they've basically been in control long enough so that way they can make it so it's very difficult for us to win. It's not a red and a blue district anymore. It's more of everything's purple but always leans blue. So um, I think that there was a big push in the early 90s for what Bill Clinton was promoting with the Democrat Party. And then when we got Bush, Bush started a war. And there was a lot of people in this state I fought in that war. There's a lot of people in this state that didn't quite agree with those policies. It gave added movement to the Democrat Party to take more ground. And by the time that we got to Obama, then that was like their bandwagon moment for the Democrat Party. And so they took everything at that point, and we were lost. We couldn't figure out a way to get back. We couldn't energize the base. We were on a downward spiral. Um, I'm always an optimist, and I always try to look for, well, what can we do to fix that? Or how can we fix that? So I look at the state of the Oregon Republican Party as it's not some over bloated, gigantic thing that has to be dismantled and torn apart. It is something that we can build.
Okay. What is your plan to return Oregon Republicanism to relevance? And what does your experience, your particularly executive experience, indicate that you will be successful? How does it indicate that you'll be successful?
Well, I think it starts with the grassroots because, if you look at what our foundation is, well, what is our foundation? Our foundation is literally the PCPs that are elected by the voters to represent them in the Oregon Republican Party. That's the foundation. From there, you elect up from your counties to your state party to your RNC. So if we don't have strong grassroots, then I don't think that we're going to really accomplish anything. And then I referred to the bandwagon before. It's kind of like when the Oregon Ducks are undefeated and everybody's got their duck gear on and they're like, yay. Right now, we're like 1-13 and nobody wants to claim the big R. So it's like the Ducks, they are not doing very well. So we have to generate that enthusiasm. One of the things that I have noticed is our communication skills across the party in all the counties, they could be a lot better. One of the things I just recently did is I went and looked on every county page just to see kind of where all the what's their outward facing look to voters and other people that are Republicans. And I found stuff with 2022 voter data on there, like vote for this guy or vote for this guy or vote for this guy. I found a lot of stuff that had to do with our previous election that hadn't been updated. When I looked for social media, um, I didn't find social media at the top of their page. Now, if it's not at the top of their page, then you got to go dig for it. Some of them didn't even have it on their page at all. You have to go dig for it. And if we're talking about this generation and the previous generation, and I hear this so many times, we don't have any youth in the Republican Party. Well, they're on social media, they're internet, generation. So that's what they know. So if we're not going to meet them where they're at, with our message, how are we ever going to get it out to them? Are we going to rely on the legacy media or the local media to promote that message for us? Well, we know that that doesn't work. So we need to say it with our own voice and have counties be able to echo the same sentiment that's being said across the state, because you might get a follower in Washington County, but they're not going to be a follower in, let's say, Baker County. You're going to have two different demographics following that social media. So I think that it's really key to get our message out there so that way voters know what we're trying to do and say.
Many Oregon elected officials, not party officials, of all parties, consider the activist base of their political party apparatuses to be dumping grounds for malcontents and out of touch ideologues. How has your experience equipped you to herd these cats?
I don't look at them like that. Like, I don't like the fashion. I don't like the faction thing. I don't. We're all in the same fight. It's just that some people have different of opinions about how to fight. They want the change. Everybody agrees on that they want the change. They don't like what's going on. They just have a difference of opinion of how to do it or what we should do. And the most important thing is that before you make decisions, you have to hear all parties and you have to hear them. You can't treat them like they're beneath you, like I see a lot of people do in the political world. They treat people that they see that are lesser than them as unequal and they don't value their opinion. I don't ever do that. I don't ever treat anybody like that because I live by that golden rule that if I don't want to be treated by like that, then I'm not going to treat anybody else like that, because it's just not right. So I think that I can bring people together and eliminate this faction thing that everybody keeps on talking about. I know there's factions. Look, I know there is, but I want us to all fight for the same cause, to not be tearing each other down constantly because we're not happy about what the Democrats are doing in this state. So, um, the unity message, I think it comes with leadership. As soon as there's strong leadership in the state where we have defined goals and we know where we're going to go, that is going to get people on track to fight in the same direction.
What do you believe is possible for the Oregon Republican Party chair to accomplish? And how will we as Oregonians be able to measure whether your tenure is a success or failure?
Well, there's three things that I think are probably the most important thing that a chairman can do, and or woman, is raise money, bring people into the party, and get Republicans elected. They're all equally important. You can't have one without the other. We're not going to get Republicans elected if we don't bring enthusiasm of people into the party, or we can't raise any money. If we can't raise any money, we're definitely not going to get any Republicans elected, and nobody's going to want to hang out with us. So I think that they're equally as important things that have to be tackled with the utmost importance, because if we don't, we're destined for the same again. So I think that measuring what this next 2 years would be on whether or not it's a success or not would be, do we get ready for campaign finance reform? Because it happens after this 26 election. Are we ready? Did we raise any money? Did we bring people into the party? What is our sentiment from the voters? How are we viewed? Are we getting our message out there, or are we just flat like we are right now? I think those are going to be the measures of whether or not it was a success or not.
What specific deliverables would success and failure for you look like as chair?
Specific deliverables.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If, well, I'm just going to be honest, we didn't raise any money by our chairman over these last 2 years, and it hurt us in this last election. We couldn't do as many things as we wanted to do. Um, we couldn't do as much get out the vote. We couldn't, as the ORP, help counties to promote candidates. Um, it was tough. It was tough. We should have been able to do more. We knew that we were gonna get Trump back. I mean, everybody believed that we were gonna get Trump back because everybody was so fed up with the last 4 years that we were gonna get him back. So we should have been able to capitalize on that, and we didn't. And I think that we have to look back to that and understand why we didn't capitalize off that, and what can we do to change that in the future. And I've laid out a couple of those things with a plan to change that for the future. So
So that concludes my questions concerning your executive experience. And so now I'm going to hand over to Chair Danny Johnson to ask some follow-up questions of whatever he thinks is relevant.
okay.
Hello, Gabriel. This is probably a question that we've touched briefly on so far, but to inspire Oregon voters and to inspire the ORP precinct committee members throughout the state, what do you see your skill in elevating the inspiration factor for all of the Republicans? And secondly, what kind of a team builder are you in regard to the future organization within the ORP?
Okay, let's start with that first part of that question first. So, how my grassroots leader is basically what you're asking me, Danny?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that in this last election cycle that I did that was very grassroots, we had ranked choice voting that was going to be on the ballot. The legislature referred it and said that we want the voters to vote on this to change the Constitution. At that point, I looked into, what could we do? What could we do to tell the voters that this was really bad? Because, their PAC that they were going to have for this, they already had millions of dollars for it, and we didn't have that. So, what could we do? How could we make an influence? So, I looked up what it takes to get in the voters pamphlet. And it was, $1,200 extortion fee to get your voice in there as a voter, or it was 500 signatures. And I'm like, we've been running around this state gathering signatures like crazy for all these other initiatives. Getting 500 signatures, that's nothing. So I proposed it to the leadership of the ORP. They didn't seem too excited about doing it. Well, I told my executive committee that, hey, I think we should do this. And they said, all right, well, why don't you present your idea in the next CCM? So I did. I presented it, told my PCPs, this is what I want you to do. I want you to write a voter pamphlet statement. I want that thing ready to go right now because the ballot title is not official. So we can't do any work yet, but we can be ready. So we got ready. We had 30 PCPs write statements. Then when they did the ballot title, we had literally like a month, and we gathered 26,000 signatures in a month. Now, it wasn't individual signatures because we had 30 voter pamphlet statements, so it was a lot of duplicate signatures. We had a packet that people could sign. We got every single one that we tried for into the voters pamphlet. They actually shut down the Secretary of State's office for a day so they could count all the signatures of these statements that we put in. Once it was approved and then the deadline was over, there was 54 voter pamphlet statements against, and 30 of them were from Washington County alone. Now, if we would have pushed that statewide and it would have been a statewide initiative, there would have been 300 voter pamphlet statements. But I can't possibly help but think that Washington County played a role in making sure that ranked choice voting went down.
Thank you. So if you are to become the ORP chair, what is going to be your exit strategy, and what is the planning that it takes to build up to an exit strategy, say 2, 4, or 6 years down the road, if and when you don't continue in the position?
You mean like my exit strategy, like me leaving?
Yes, and what does that mean to the ORP? What are they left with?
Well, I firmly believe in leaving it better than the way that you found it. Right now, if I do get elected as chairman of the ORP, I will be leaving Washington County a million times better than what I found it. I have a lot of great volunteers on my executive team and great PCPs that do a lot of work, and they're excited about doing the work too. So I don't think that it would be a problem if the voters of the delegation decided that they did not want me for another term. I'm not saying that I would run another term. I'm just saying that we're going to take those first 2 years and we're going to see what we can do with the campaign finance laws. Sorry, I was having a brain fog there. The campaign finance laws, we have to make some headway with that. We have to be able to talk to our legislators and understand what they envision for the future of that and what the party envisions for the future of that, so that because we can't get caught flat-footed. So That's what I'm going to base these next 2 years off of. Can we make some headway on that? And then I'll evaluate whether or not I need to run again. Like I said, I am not a status quo guy. I am a rebuilder. I build things for a living, and I just want to build this party back so that we can win seats.
Thank you.
So now, thank you very much, Chair Johnson, for your questions. Now we're going to move on to Section 2, Oregon Culture and Political History. So as we discussed it before, about from 1859 until 1985. So that kind of implied the answer to this question. When did Oregon enter the Union?
1859 on February 14th is Valentine's Day.
From April 12th, 1861 until May 26th, 1865, what nationally significant event occurred?
Say those dates again.
April 12th, 1861 till May 26th, 1865.
The Civil War.
And what was the Civil War about?
Well, considering that I fought in a war over weapons of mass destruction, but it could have been some other things, history says that it was fought over slavery.
Okay. And what party was formed to abolish slavery?
The Republican Party.
And who was the Republican Party's first president?
Abraham Lincoln.
Why was Oregon's entry into the Union on the eve of the Civil War significant?
Because we were above the Mason-Dixon line, I believe, is the reason why it was significant.
Did abolitionism form a key part of the Oregon Republican Party's identity when it was formed?
Yes, we had a lot of abolitionists there are still some dry cities in this state because of what happened with, yeah.
What is the idea of Oregon to you?
The idea of Oregon to me is like this beautiful, green, scenic place where you can go to the beach, you can go to the mountains, you can be in a meadow. It is the most beautiful outdoor place that I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've been to a lot of places.
Do you believe Oregon is fully honoring the idea of Oregon these days?
No, not with the way that we're dealing with the homelessness crisis. We've destroyed our major city in Portland. It used to be known as a beautiful foodie town that had all these different places to go in nightlife, and now you can't walk down the street without stepping in some poop. So it's really taken a bad turn with the lawlessness, especially that we had in 2020.
In 2008, Nate Silver published an analysis of Oregon political affiliation, in which he found that Oregon Republicans are the most conservative in the nation and Oregon Democrats are the most liberal. What implications, if any, do you believe that has for the future of Oregon?
Well, that pendulum, it swings. It doesn't stay to one side. It's a continuously moving target. So with what's going on in our nation right now, the I think that pendulum is swinging back towards the Republican side. It's been on the Democrat side for a very long time, but I think that as long as we can build enthusiasm in our party, that we can win, that people will show up.
Do you believe Oregon is experiencing a crisis in public trust? And if so, why?
Yeah, I think so. I think they are experiencing a crisis in that because, talking to people that are non-affiliated or some of my family members that are Democrats, they are definitely starting to question, like, what are we doing? And I always say, well, that's what happens when you get to the one party system. We only got one party running the state, and we've only had one party for a long time, and they're like, oh, well, there's Republicans. Well, yeah, but they have enough votes to override. So it's a one party state. I think they're waking up to the fact that if there's not balance, it's chaos.
In what way, if any, have Oregon Republicans and the Oregon Republican Party contributed to our current crisis in public trust?
I would have to say that the downfall of the party um, has really been people that want to have a title but not have to work and do the hard work that's involved with changing this state back to a red state. I I don't really feel like we have the we had the enthusiasm. Now let me preface that by saying that that really changed because of 2020 and wearing masks and forcing people to take shots. And a lot of people in this state were like, whoa. And they woke up to the fact that if we don't do something, then this is only going to get worse. So I think that's why I think the pendulum's swinging. I think it's changing. And I know that it's changing.
What former Oregon Republican Party chair over the past 25 years was your favorite, and why?
I particularly like Susan Gallagher. Suzanne is she is a champion of children, and I view children as our future. If we are not going to take care of our future by teaching them the mistakes that we made, then we're destined to make them again. So I think our children are the most important asset that we have in this world. And I've got 3 of them and I love them to death.
Which former Oregon Republican Party chair over the last 25 years was your least favorite, and why?
I would have to say Bill Courier, because from what I have discovered, Bill Courier took the Kate Brown recall data and held it hostage from Dallas Hurd, a previous chair, and wouldn't give it to him. And we did never get it. And the Oregon Republican Party paid for it to do that second recall. And we still don't know what happened to that data. I think that hurt our party, because that was people that were fed up with the Democrat rule and they took it. I think that's probably the person that I would think that hurt us the most recently.
That concludes the questions that I have for Section 2, Oregon Culture and Political History. Chair Johnson, the floor is yours. And your microphone is muted right now, Chair Johnson.
Okay, I'm gonna move the lights again so they can edit this out.
Okay, then we'll go back. Danny, are you with us? Danny, you're still muted. Bottom left-hand corner of your screen.
I know. I'm
awesome.
Sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
Let's circle back around. I
don't like being laughed at, Gabe. Come on now. Be nice.
I'm just smiling.
Get used to it, Chair Johnson. Gabriel, that concludes all the questions I have for Section 2, Oregon Culture and Political History. Chair Johnson, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
So we've talked around the bit of divisions within the party and whatnot. And I mentioned what is the inspiration that we need to move forward. How can we get a solid coalition of all the county central committees on that communication string that you've talked about? And how do we as a party, between all the CDs of 1 through 6, I believe, come together and build that communication skill that we need to be more effective on a statewide level?
Well, I mean, first of all, we got to have some infrastructure in that. Like, we've got to get everybody to get on the same page with the idea of, hey, we need to have a social media presence. We need to start now so that way we can reach out to voters. There needs to be an effort to get everybody to come to the table. And that's what I really want to do to start off with. When picking committee chairs or picking people for ad hoc committees to take care of a couple of initiatives that I'm going to have, um, I I don't care what faction you are. I could care less. I care if you have the drive and the ability and you want to take this on. That's what I care about the most. I'm not going to exclude anybody. I want to hear everybody's voice. I want us to move together as one unit, not as, well, this is Gabriel Buehler's team. No, this is our team. We have to move together as a team. The other thing is we got to change the culture. The culture of this state is top down. The ORP dictates to the counties. I do not believe in that whatsoever. We elect up from the bottom up. So it should be grassroots. The the ORP should be the grease and the county should be the gears. We should just be greasing those gears so they can run smoothly, and whatever we got to do to help facilitate that, that is the job of the ORP, in my opinion. I think that's why we don't win, is because it is just this top down, you know, I have the seat, I'm the chair, or, I'm the vice chair, or I'm the national committee woman or committee man, and, I have this title. And I don't really look at it like that. I think we need to change that. And if we do, with leadership, we can win. And I know we can win because we're not doing it
Thank you.
right now. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the things that we've noticed on a national level with the new administration is that the term think outside the box has been in the forefront. Where can the ORP start thinking outside the box based on what we've done historically and what we should be looking at toward the future?
Well, if we can start raising some funds, I think that is really going to help everybody with the enthusiasm of, hey, we can do this. Fundraising is going, like I said, there's three things, but fundraising is very important. It's hard to do anything in this world without money. Okay. So we fundraise. I think that's going to change the sentiment of being able to win, because the outlook is going to be seen as better. We can do all this stuff. We have to capitalize off Donald Trump being in that office. We have to promote our values out there. We need people to understand what we're standing on and what we're trying to champion. We don't get that message out. And if voters don't know what you're about, why should they vote for you? They won't.
Thank you. Daniel?
Thank you very much, Chair Johnson. Now we'll proceed to Section 3, the Oregon Republican Party going forward. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and then as soon as we finish this part of it, I'm going to ask you to get out your bylaws and your platform. If you wish to consult them at all, it's open book. So first series of questions about the Oregon Republican Party going forward. What is the role of the Oregon Republican Party to you?
It's to get Republicans elected. That is the number one goal. Sub goals would be, to speak out against ballot initiatives, something that would be harmful to the citizens of this state. Those are important. They're very important. We couldn't just let ranked choice voting fall through the cracks, but getting Republicans elected is the number one goal.
Please make the best argument you are capable of making about why Oregon needs a Democratic Party.
Well, just like we are under one party rule, the human condition in having one group or organization have an authoritarian control over something, abuse happens. So if we only had Republicans, I'm not saying that Republicans would abuse it, but the human condition shows us that that happens over and over and over again. When you have balance, there's a check.
Oregon Democrats currently enjoy a political monopoly in Oregon. Why?
Because we don't do a very good job of getting Republicans elected and get our message out there. We're pretty lackluster, and we got to do better. We can't continue down this same road, or else we're destined for decades of the same status quo. I am trying to not be a status quo candidate. I want to turn it on its head.
In your opinion, did the 2016 and 2024 election cycles at the federal level represent realignment elections?
Say that question again.
So, in your opinion, did the 2016 and 2024 election cycles at the federal level represent realignment elections?
Yes, especially 2016. I give this analogy to people all the time. In 2016, was fake news a word? No. But by 2020, it was absolutely a word. And people started to question what they were seeing on the TV. Are they really telling me the truth? We want people to have discernment. We want people to question things and not implicitly believe. We want them to be smarter. We want voters to be educated. These are the things that we should strive for in the Republican Party.
Given that your perception is that we've had a realignment election, what implications does that national realignment have for Oregon Republicans?
I think that we have a really good chance, with the things that are coming out with the government abuse of taxpayer dollars. We're on day, 19 or 20 of Trump? It's usually judged by the first 100 days, and we're a couple of weeks in. I think that by the time that we get to 2026, this is going to be an absolutely different world in this state.
From 1859 until 1986, Oregon Republicans were Oregon's natural majority party. In fact, from 1878 until 1985, for 107 uninterrupted years, our number 2 constitutional official in Oregon, the Oregon Secretary of State, was a Republican. What changed in 1986, and in your mind, was the ascendancy into dominance in Oregon Republicanism of the so-called Oregon Citizens Alliance relevant?
It's hard to say sometimes what is the specific cause to a demographics change in a state or a region. Having more people in a metro area is the number one reason why there's an electoral college, because the founding fathers of this nation understood that the big cities could elect every single president from here on out if they did not put that into place. So the clumping together of people and the promoting of ideology in certain areas is, I think, what caused the shift. Because if you look in all metropolitan areas across this nation, it's very blue. And it begs the question, why is it very blue?
We'll now proceed to the final portion of the third subject area, the bylaws and platform of the party you aspire to lead. As I noted to our audience, you were informed before the appearance that you should review the Oregon Republican Party bylaws and platforms, as they are supposed to be the clearest expression of the priorities of your party. What do the Oregon Republican Party bylaws say the Oregon Republican Party chair job is?
Well, they're subject to the executive committee, and their general charge is to run the Oregon Republican Party. They manage employees that are hired. They appoint committee members. There are some ad hoc committees that they can appoint. Let's see what else. They report to the Central Committee. They negotiate contracts, and they can also work as the liaison to the Secretary of State in writing up for or against opposition arguments.
By whom is the chair elected?
The chair is elected by the delegates that are seated from each individual county at an organizational meeting.
Okay. And is that known as the State Central Committee of the Oregon Republican Party?
Yes.
Okay. How many members sit on the Executive Committee of the Oregon Republican Party, and how are they selected?
So there's the National Committee man, National Committee woman, Secretary Treasurer. These are all selected by and the chair and the vice chair. They're all selected by the Central Committee. Now, there are standing committees. Those standing committees are the chairs for those committees are appointed by the chair, but the confirmation has to come from the executive committee. But they work at the behest of the chair, and they can be, removed from that committee by the chairman. So there's the finance committee, the candidate assistants, the precinct organization, bylaws committee, rules committee, and the resolutions committee, and the budget, which is the treasurer. Has to be the treasurer.
So we have an executive committee of the Oregon Republican Party under your bylaws, and you also have a state central committee. How are the members of the state central committee selected?
So that happens with an organizational meeting in each county. So organizational meetings happen after the general election every 2 years, and they have to happen before the I can't remember if it's I think it's the 25th of November. I think it has to happen in November. I think it's the 25th. Every county has to have their organizational meeting. That's when they pick their county leadership. And then the first meeting that those county leaders were elected to is the organizational meeting of the Oregon Republican Party to pick the state party leaders, minus the chairman and minus the national committee woman and committee man.
So how are precinct committee persons chosen, and at what level do they operate?
Okay, so they operate at the county level. They are the only people that are elected by the voters. They are to be the representation of their voice as party members, as registered party members for their party affiliation. It takes 3 votes to be elected, and you are elected in your precinct for which you live, and you vote in the leadership for the county is what. And you're also you're the person that works at the very lowest level, but is absolutely fundamentally the most important person in our party, hands down. Without the PCPs, there is no point to doing any of this.
Okay. So, and do when you say that voters select the precinct committee persons, is it all voters or is it only registered Republicans?
No, so it's only registered Republicans, and Washington County does a great initiative every time that the primary comes around, because that's when, people want to vote for who they want to have their represent. You got a whole bunch of Republicans and a whole bunch of Democrats running. And so at that point, we run an initiative that is don't be a NAV, and we register people to vote. And when people come up and ask, what's a NAV? And I say it's not allowed to vote. And they're like, whoa, what's going on? Not allowed to vote. And then I explained it to them. I've got a lot of Republican Party registrations that way. So you have to be a registered Republican to vote in a PCP in a precinct.
Okay. And we're throwing around this word precinct a lot, but we have to imagine that for some of our voters, since vote by mail has been implemented, precincts might be a bit of an anachronism. And so if you can just talk some of our younger voters through what precincts actually used to be, we still retain the title, but it is, we don't, precincts are probably not intuitively obvious to many of your younger voters.
Okay, so before the vote by mail was voted into the Constitution by the Oregon voters, we had precincts, and those precincts, they're kind of like small counties. There's a whole bunch of precincts inside of one county, and you would go to your polling station in your precinct and you would say, hey, I live at blah 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 blah. You would get your ballot, vote, and turn your ballot in. The ballots would be counted at that precinct level, and then those numbers and tallies would be reported to the elections office for the county. So it's like a remnant of a way that we used to do it, which we should go back to that way.
Okay, so registered Republicans directly elect precinct committee persons. And
Yes.
if I understand you correctly, and then precinct committee persons select their county leadership, including members of the state central committee. The members of the state central committee then elect many of the executive officers of the Oregon Republican Party.
Right. And so then your national committee woman and national committee man and your party chairman or woman, that's who sits on the RNC. So when you hear the RNC, that is who is at the RNC representing Oregon, or those three people.
And is it the case that there are 50 national committee men and 50 national committee women who comprise effectively the central committee of the Republican National Committee?
Yes, absolutely. There's equal representation by the only two genders that there are.
Now we're going to move over to some questions about the Oregon Republican Party platform. So the first question I have for you is, why does the Oregon Republican Party even have a platform?
That's a really good question because, some people don't know where to find it. Some people don't know what it is. Some people complain that it's too long. Some people say it's too short. We should say all kinds of other things in there. I think that we should be using planks from that platform and creating social media content and blasting that out there across all parties using their own social media and the ORP social media to tell everybody what we think, because we don't tell anybody what we think. And that's the whole point of the platform. It's, what do you believe? What do you stand on?
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the Oregon Republican Party bylaws and the Oregon Republican Party platform. And so if you can kind of describe for our viewers what each of those documents, the purpose of them, and then we'll ask some follow-up questions. I will ask some follow-up questions about your opinion about some parts of the platform.
Okay, so the bylaws are it's basically the rules that are set forth by the organization, voted on by the members. It's not voted on by the members every time, but in the organizational meeting, it only requires 50% to change the bylaws. That's the only time that it's ever half. Every other time it's 2/3 to change the bylaws, consent from the voting body. But what it is it's a set down procedure and rules of what you shall do and shall not do. So it's more of something that you would call, like, in outside of the party, you would be like, oh, well, this is the standard operating procedure for this. So if you need to know how to do an election, or when you should hold this election, you would refer to the bylaws. The bylaws would tell you that it must be conducted between this time and this time, and this is what you shall do.
Okay. And just to clarify for our viewers, you'd said that the changes to things require, if I heard you correctly, 50% plus one of under some circumstances, or a 2/3 majority of the body. And by the body, do you mean of all the members or of just the members actually voting?
No, so of the voting credentialed seated members in a central committee meeting to the Oregon Republican Party can change the bylaws with a 50+1 vote in the biannual organizational meeting. So that's every 2 years when you elect the leadership of the party. Or else, if they want to change it outside of that organizational meeting, and let's say a different meeting of the Oregon Republican Party, it requires a 2/3 vote. So the only time where it's just a majority vote is in the biannual organizational meeting.
At 18 single-spaced pages and 6,335 words, do you think the Oregon Republican Party platform should be expanded, contracted, or left exactly the same?
Well, okay, so I think that we can have a couple of different um, ways to explain it to voters. If we're going to have the 18 pages, that's fine and dandy if people want to um read all of our platform. I think it's great. They should read everything that we have to say about that. But the preambles to each plank on the platform, it's a real good synopsis of basically what we're talking about in that plank. That's where I'm thinking that we could use that. And if you put that on a document, that's one sheet of paper, front and back. It's not 18 pages. It's a lot more consumable by a voter, and it's easily handed out. And that's kind of what I've done in my county, is because if I hand somebody an 18-page document, I mean, are they really going to read it, or are they going to take it out of my hands in the first place and be like, "Oh no, I'm totally good. I don't need to read that." Or let's say I give them a QR code. "Oh, scan this. You can go see it there." Are they really going to do it? If it's in the attention span of people these days is so short that you got to get them right out the gate. And if you don't get them right out the gate, then it's in one ear and out the other. So um, I'm not so much for shortening it, but I think that we can take pieces out of that, promote that, so that way that message is shorter.
Section 11 of the Oregon Republican Party platform is titled Individual Liberty and Limited Government. And Section 11.3 specifically states, quote, "We advocate limiting the scope and jurisdiction of the federal and state government, addressing abuses in commerce and the general welfare clauses," close quote. However, Section 9, Healthcare, contains Section 9.4, which states, quote, "We are pro-life, therefore we support the sanctity of life from conception and natural death and are opposed to abortion and physician-assisted suicide. We promote pursuing full disclosure of all known risks and complications of abortion, surgically and chemically, and the organ harvesting and eugenic practices of the abortion industry." Do you see any tension between those two sections?
No, because we're talking about killing babies here. We're talking about killing human beings. Um, you don't have the right to go murder somebody. So if you don't have the right to go kill a baby, as far as I'm concerned, I don't consider it women's health care in abortion, unless, life of the mother, there's extreme circumstances. I still don't like it at all. I don't agree with it. I actually chaired the first plank, the individual liberty and limited government. I chaired that in the last platform convention and helped craft some of the language that's in there. A lot of it was holdover from the previous convention, but people should have the choice to choose. But life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, we can't take life away from somebody because they're not born yet. That's ridiculous to me.
In 2018, Oregonians voted on Measure 106 concerning public funding of abortions. By 2-1, Oregonians rejected Section 9.4 of the Oregon Republican Party platform, or one could make that argument. Do political parties that embrace unpopular policies tend to do well electorally?
No, they don't. But when you go meet your creator, if you believe that, I'm gonna tell him that I did not support abortion, and if that's what it costs me, so be it. We should not be killing babies.
Numerous Republican statewide candidates since 1990 have been anti-abortion, like Monica Webby in 2008, Newt Buehler in 2014, 2018, and 2020, and U.S. Representative Lori Chavez DeRemer in 2022 and 2024. Are pro-choice Republicans welcome in the Oregon Republican Party?
If it's look, if like let's say that you agree with somebody 99.9% of everything except for that one thing that they think that abortion is okay. Are you going to ostracize them because of that? Um, if they're going to vote for abortion, they're going to have a real hard time getting Republican votes if they're a Republican. So there's a cost associated with that for both sides. Um, I think the position is very clear in the Republican Party that abortion is not okay unless there are extenuating circumstances, which I don't particularly agree with, but extenuating circumstances. But yeah, that's a decision you're going to have to make. If you're willing to sacrifice your base to gain votes from the other party to win, that's your choice.
Given the electoral math, does the Oregon Republican Party's position make political sense?
Well, there's a fine line between what makes political sense and what's the right thing. There's a lot of things that are politically correct in this world, but they're not the right thing. I'd rather stand with the right thing.
In light of the priority which the Oregon Republican Party platform prioritizes transparency, would you support broadcasting Oregon Republican Party meetings as chair?
I'd have to say yes, I would. I think that level of transparency would give a glimpse for the Oregon Republican Party voters into what actually we're doing, what we stand on, and how we're trying to get Republicans elected. I think it's something of, you know, um, secret thing right now. And why shouldn't it be open? I mean, we should be advertising exactly what we're doing. What is there to hide?
So now I'd like to ask you some questions about election integrity. Specifically, Oregon Republicans have leaned pretty heavily into allegations of electoral fraud to explain going 1-33 at the last time I counted, which was back in 2020, I believe, in statewide elections since 1990. Section 2 of the Oregon Republican Party platform is on, quote, election integrity, close quote, and it has 17 subsections. In your own words, why is election integrity important?
Well, in that platform convention, we had one of our members of the Washington County election integrity team make a motion to move election integrity to the number 2 item because it is so important. And the body resoundingly voted yes on that. Washington County has a great election integrity team. It is absolutely important. Just like I said in the previous comment, what do we have to hide? So if there's nothing to hide with how we count the vote, how the machines work, how the whole balloting process works, let's show everybody. Right now in Washington County, you can't even be in the room. You get to watch some 25-year-old monitor that's all fuzzy and you can't even see what's going on. And that's what the Washington County election office calls election integrity. That's your observer status right there. So I think that we need to be clear and open about this. If there's nothing to hide, then there's no problems and then they could shut us up. Why wouldn't they want to shut us up?
Section 2.1 of the Oregon Republican Party platform begins with, quote, we support the elimination of mail-in voting and computerized tabulation of votes. Do you agree with that position?
Yes, I do.
given, in fact, I apologize, I just skipped over a page. There we go. Given the fact that vote by mail was voted in by Oregon voters via ballot measure 60 in 1998 by a margin of 69.4% to 30.6%, what is your plan to repeal it?
Well, I think we have many, many, many steps in front of us to repeal it, because there is an initiative in this state right now to end vote by mail. And I asked the chief petitioner the question, how are you going to convince voters to give up a day of work to go stand in line for 6 hours to vote when they can vote at their kitchen table right now and they get 2 weeks? And there was no answer. So I think that we have to do some other things first, like clear out our voter rolls. We need our voter rolls clean. There's a lot of other things that we could do in the county level before we get to repealing and vote by mail. That's going to be a tough one to get people to give that up. That convenience.
Is it possible that unpopular policies might have also played a role in Oregon Republicans' 40-year losing streak?
Well, okay, so if unpopular policies are moving more to the left when they have swung that pendulum so far to the left that they're building schools now with no boys and girls bathrooms. It's just everybody uses the same bathroom. I build a lot of public works projects. That's insane. Tampons in the boys' bathroom, that's crazy. They just destroy them. They're teenage kids. They rip them off the wall and flush them down the toilet. It's such a waste of taxpayer money. So, if our ideals were the cause of us losing, and the only way to win was to follow the Democrats more to the left, is that really something we want to give up?
Now, I'd like to follow up on your comment just now. If I understood you correctly, you said that they're building schools without male and female restrooms. Is that here in Oregon? Do you believe
Oh,
that
yeah.
they're building schools right now? And if so, where?
So one of the schools that I completed just recently, Hillsboro. Hillsboro had a grade school go in. It's K through 5, and there are no boys and girls bathrooms. They adjoin together. You can walk in both ways and go around like that, and everybody's using the same bathroom. There's no urinals. There's little kids get to use the same bathroom. They get one hand wash station right out there like that, and that's the way it works. In high schools, it works a little bit different. They have one central spot where everybody walks in, and there's a whole bunch of doors and a whole bunch of doors, and everybody can go in and use a toilet, and it locks, and then but you're all out in the open, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's not a lot of privacy concerns are addressed. And with young people, they're already so self-conscious about their own body because they're going through all these changes in life as they're getting older. Why do you want to make it more difficult going to the bathroom? I mean, come on.
Now I'd like to refocus on the Oregon Republican Party's platform on election integrity, and with the follow-up question, which is it possible that shouting voter fraud as a catch-all explanation for Oregon Republican Party's statewide underperformance might actually be contributing to Oregon Republican Party electoral underperformance?
It could possibly be. So, if you're going to come screaming some stuff, you definitely have to have the receipts. You have to be able to prove. And that's one of the things that the Washington County Election Integrity Team, we have been trying to prove for a very long time. Actually took a couple of things to court with a couple of the members, with the SQL database and the vote cast record. We had the judge block us because they said that it's not the interest of the public. Yeah, so there's there's a cost that's involved, but if we don't say anything and we don't try to educate the people, then nobody's ever really going to know, and we're going to be in the same position that we are right now. It's it's not like a light switch, Daniel. You can't go over and flip it and change it. It's more like a dimmer switch, and it's slowly being turned up, and it's getting brighter and brighter. And sometimes things take longer than others, but it took us a long time to get to here. So it's going to take a little bit of work to get back.
After the 2020 election, the Oregon Republican Party passed a resolution denouncing the January 6th investigation as a, quote, false flag operation, close quote. Were you part of the Oregon Republican Party leadership at that time?
In 2020?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Do you agree or disagree with the resolution that was passed?
I think it was absolutely a trap. I've seen enough evidence just on what has already been released that they were letting people inside the Capitol, armed uniform officers were opening up doors and letting people in. The fact that, they charged people that were like in there, like grandmas on like a sightseeing tour, and they're taking pictures, and you charge them with years in prison for that. Um, I I think we lost the priority of the service to the people there. I think there were some provocateurs in there. I definitely think that there probably were provocateurs on both sides. Some people were upset with what was going on, that were on Donald Trump's side, but there were also some people there that were in the crowd that were instigating, doing things that made it so that what we saw or what we were told or purported to be told, it's not reality. And that's exactly why Donald Trump pardoned those people. And I think that over this next year, we are going to get to the bottom of exactly what happened and who did what.
By my count, President Trump recently issued pardons and commutations to several Oregonians, 8 specifically, and 1 former Oregonian, who were involved in whatever it is that happened on January 6th, including 2 people whom the media reported as being from Umatilla County, but Chair Johnson actually helped clarify that they are actually, the Klein brothers are a couple of citizens of Baker County. Given that Oregon Republican parties, that you as chair, or whoever the chair of the Oregon Republican Party is, obviously does not have a lot to say about federal or state level pardons. So with that qualification, I'd ask you as a candidate for Oregon Republican Party chair, do you disagree or agree with President Trump's pardons?
I absolutely agree.
And so as a follow-up, I'd like to ask you some questions about Mr. Trump as the head of the National Republican Party. Mr. Trump seems to be about as popular in Oregon as Mr. Biden was popular in Idaho. Does Mr. Trump's approach to governance resonate in Oregon?
No, I mean, I don't think that it does, because we have some people here that they're just screaming to high heavens of all the things that he's trying to do in service to this country with what's happened with U.S. aid. I mean, you got people protesting that in our state about the government spending too much of our tax dollars. And it's like, you're literally standing out in the street saying, tax me more. It's like, what is it going to take to get to the point where people want to give up that ideological box that they're put in by the news media, the culture, everything, and say, well, maybe that is a good thing. Even though I don't like him, maybe that is a good thing. That's the first step.
If you are elected as Oregon Republican Party chair, what do you intend to do about the disconnect between general perception about Mr. Trump in Oregon and the Oregon Republican Party?
Well, I think that we can run on a lot of principles, that, making government more accountable to the people. That's a lot of what's going on right now with, what Elon's been doing and the Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. I think that a more efficient, manageable government is something that everybody can stand behind. um who's doing it, that's the other question. That's getting them to take the first step of, well, Trump's calling for this, so can you support that idea of having a more efficient government? Because we already know that Oregon's government is just way over bloated, underperforming. Just look at the school system, how much money is spent there. And we just got those new test score numbers. We're bottom of the barrel. We're 50. We're paying a lot of money for nothing. And that's our next generation. And they're doing it to those kids. They're not helping those kids.
When your political party wins at the federal level, Democrat or Republican, it is customary that some state level talent is steered towards political jobs in the victorious administration. Given the fact that there are about 4,000 appointed positions, and Oregon is 1.15% of the national population, that should mean about 43 federal appointed positions should customarily go to Oregonians. Um, in either the Democratic Party's case or in the Republican Party's case, it is very rarely gets anywhere near those numbers. What is your plan to place as many Oregonians in federal positions at the federal level, in appointed positions at the federal level, should you become Oregon Republican Party chair?
Well, see, and that's the thing is, for the last 20 plus years, we fell off the map. We're just completely fell off the map. We're not even, I mean, we only have 8 electoral votes. So we're always considered, sort of a flyover state, although we're part of the West Coast, and, California's got a lot of electoral votes. And so they make a huge difference on winning the presidency. So, but I think that actually showing that Oregon is here. We're not just a blue state. One of the things that we did in the Trump inauguration, I was there for that. A couple of my other teammates, you would say, in the party, we decided to throw a ball for Oregon. And we did very well, raised a whole bunch of money for the party. And we were kind of the talk of the town. Like, everybody was like, whoa, Oregon is having a ball? Like, we've never seen anything or heard anything like about this. And we had a whole bunch of people show up. So I think that we really kind of tipped that scale into everybody else in the Republican side across the nation saying, hey, Oregon's doing something over there. They might not be a lost cause.
In a similar sense, many Oregonians believe that Oregon Republicans have a significant talent deficit. And this is why so few Oregonians are invited to serve in Republican administrations. What is your plan to develop Oregon Republican talent in Oregon so that the talent deficit, if there is one, is addressed?
Well, just like it starts with the counties and the PCPs and the grassroots level, it starts with getting people to be involved in their government. We have to have people that care, and that's where we can build our talent pool from. So if you sit on a committee for, let's say your city council or your county commission, and you do that for a little bit, and then maybe you decide to run for county commissioner or school board member, promoting that way, it's a lower vote total. It's an easier margin to achieve. We can win seats like that, build up our base, and then put that base out there for the rest of the state with state senators, state representatives, statewide races, even appointments to a Republican administration. There's a lot of other things that can happen because of that. But because we don't really have that bench. I think that's kind of the reason why they don't try to pull anybody off our bench.
That concludes all the questions that I have prepared for you for Section 3, the Oregon Republican Party going forward. Now, Chair Johnson, I want to hand the floor over to you to ask whatever follow-up questions might have occurred to you.
Gabriel, do you have political relationships with the members of the Oregon legislature? And what is the current ORP relationship with the Republican caucus?
Well, I do have relationships with a number of the legislators. Um, I think the relationship with the Oregon Republican Party right now is, I think it's kind of tenuous. I think that they understand that the big change that's going to come with the campaign finance laws um, makes it so that they really need to work with us. In the past, we have not had a great relationship, but I think that our former, or was soon to be former vice chair, Angela Plowhead, I think she broke some ground on changing that perception in of the Republican Party working together with the caucus. So it's going to be absolutely essential to make a plan with them over the next 2 years.
Thank you. One other question. Money is the milk of politics, as previously mentioned. There are many individuals and PAC organizations vying for the funds from the mega donors, if you might call them that in Oregon. How can donors know where their hard-earned dollars are going so that they go directly to candidates without necessarily being expended in regard to PAC overhead and miscellaneous charges that go against those funds?
Well, that transparency aspect it's going to die on the vine here real quick because the whole dark cloud that's over PACs and unlimited funds and dark money and all this other stuff like that, it's gonna blow right out. That fog is gonna be lifted. We still have to contend with it over the next 2 years, and we really need to contend with it in building the infrastructure of what we need to do in the future. So I think being transparent about, if you're as a big donor, if you're gonna give me this money, I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do with it, and we're not going to sugarcoat anything. I never want something told to me sugarcoated. I just want, give it to me straight. Whatever it is, let's do it. I want them to feel confident that we're just not blowing it on nothing. I definitely don't think that we have been good stewards of the people's money over the last couple of years, more than a couple of years. I think that it's been a while. I think that's why the confidence is not there. So if you're just like any other business plan, if you're going to propose a plan, you've got to line it out. You've got to show people, you have to get the buy-in. So we have to get the buy-in from the donors of this is what we're going to do and this is why we're going to do it.
And one last question. In regard to funding of candidates and the donors across the state, both small and large, do you have a plan that at this point in time or an outline of a plan that can help the delegates understand where you might want to take the party?
What do you mean? Like, where do I want to take the party?
Take the party as far as financial solvency.
Oh, you mean like how do I plan on raising money? Is that what you're talking about? Okay. So I know a number of people that I feel that are chomping at the bit to help raise money for this state that are being stymied and not allowed to perform in a position that they could do a really good job at. So, and there's a couple of them. Everybody understands that if we don't raise any money, we're not going to get anybody elected. We have to, it can't be incumbent upon one person and one person alone. It has to be a group effort. We have to have a team of people that are willing to be like, hey, I'm going to take this area. I'm going to advocate for money for this area and try to get it up to the Oregon Republican Party. But on the other hand, I think that we can make our counties more solvent, which would also help the ORP in the long run. Because if the counties are working like a well-oiled machine, then there's nothing to stop us. So I'm going to be calling on those people when I get elected. There's a lot of people that are willing to help me fundraise. I'll be calling on them, and I know we can do it.
Thank you, Gabriel. Daniel?
Chairman Danny Johnson, I think that concludes our second episode of Series 1, the Race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025. I want to thank Baker County Chair Danny Johnson for joining us today and serving so excellently as referee. Chair Gabriel Buehler of Washington County, I also want to thank you for appearing today and giving us the benefit of your perspective and your ideas about how you can actually make the Oregon Republican Party relevant again in Oregon politics. I'm going to leave you, Gabriel Buehler, with the last word to kind of make your closing statement to our viewers.
So I have something prepared that I want to read, and it's a pledge that I'm going to make to the Oregon Republican Party. As chairman of the Oregon Republican Party, I solemnly pledge to uphold the following principles and ensure that I will lead with honor and integrity and commitment to the values that matter the most to our party. Number one, I will always be clear and concise in my communication, yet fair and objective to all decisions. Number two, I will put the needs of the party above any personal ambition, work solely for the success of Oregon and our cause. Number three, I will lead with unwavering honor and integrity, setting an example for all of us to follow. Number four, I will always be available by phone or email, ensuring open communication with all members of our party. Number five, I will prioritize accountability and transparency in every aspect of my leadership. Number six, I will listen to all the ideas and concerns before making decisions, ensuring a fair and balanced approach to every issue. Number seven, Oregon will always come first in my duties as chairman, with steadfast commitment to the people of our state. Number eight, I will make appointments to committees based on ability and merit, ensuring the best people are in the right positions. And number nine, the most important, I will treat everyone as an equal because we are all united in the same fight for a stronger, brighter future for Oregon. These are the promises that I will make to every single Oregon Republican Party voter and Oregon Republican.
Thank you very much, Gabriel Buehler. This has been Town Hall 2025. Let's keep talking, Oregon.
Thank you.
We here at Town Hall 2025 wonder if maybe Oregon doesn't need more politics, but clearer politics. And maybe, just like teenagers, our politicians could benefit from clearer boundaries that you set. To support your responsibility for self-government, you're working to revive an Oregon where once we were able to disagree without being disagreeable. In the coming months, we hope to bring you, in their own words, leaders from all of our political parties. Thank you for joining us on Series 1, the Race for Oregon Republican Party Chair 2025. Next up will be Series 2, the Race for Democratic Party Chair 2025. I'm Daniel Crow, and this is Town Hall 2025. Until next time, let's keep talking.